Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. Well, right now we are in turbulent times, at least on the diplomatic front. Yes, I'm referring to what is happening between India and Canada. And to carry forward this discussion, I have with me our former ambassador to China and Bhutan, and also the former High Commissioner to Pakistan, Gautam Bambawale. Welcome to The Print, sir.
Thank you, Snehesh. Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. It's a complete, it's my honor. So my straight question to you, what do you make of this diplomatic standoff, deterioration, whatever that you want to call it, between India and Canada?
Well, I think, Snehesh, if you look at the issue itself, the basic issues which are involved, India has been trying to convince Canada that there are people in their country
Yeah.
who are targeting India, not merely politically, but also in the form of terrorism. And we want them to take action against those people. The Canadians are refusing to do so. And because of that, what has unfolded over the past 1 year, the diplomatic spat, is a result of the two countries not seeing eye to eye on this particular point. And I think that's the crux of the issue.
Okay. That's the crux of the issue that has been hanging, around on all of us for the last year and a half. But when it comes to this, the fresh set of allegations that the Canadians have made, and the Canadians actually wanted India to waive the diplomatic immunity to the Indian High Commissioner there, as well as five other diplomats. Isn't it unprecedented that, of course, there is a murder investigation that is on, but the Canadian authorities wanted to implicate the Indian High Commissioner into this?
Absolutely, something which has not been heard of before, something which is absolutely ridiculous in my view, that the Canadians should be pointing at the Indian High Commissioner to their country as a person of interest. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. It is something which we have not ever come across before or heard before. And the most important thing, Snehesh, is that they have not been able to share with us any information which points in this direction. And there is no question about an Indian High Commissioner or an Indian ambassador being involved in things and events of this nature. So I think the Canadians, I don't know why they're doing this. I don't know what is the evidence they have, because they have not shared much of it with us, at least not in the public domain. But I think they are forcibly moving the relationship into extremely low gear. And I haven't seen India-Canada relations at such a low ebb, at least for the last 40 years.
True. So this is the lowest that both the bilateral ties have gone to. So since you mentioned about this whole issue, now there is a separate similar issue that is there with the US. Now, when I see how India has reacted to both the US and Canada, it's totally different, right? And both the countries have also reacted totally different to what one may call as similar incidents. The US has preferred to handle it, in background conversations behind the curtains. And India, as we speak right now, there's an Indian team which is in the US to investigate further and discuss with the US. But in the case of Canada, they have really gone ballistic. Do you think that it's a lot to do with him the Justin Trudeau trying to garner political support, especially of the extreme right wing groups within the Sikh community there, sir?
Look, Snehesh, it's quite possible that there are some domestic aspects, including political aspects of this case. But the fact is that surely a person of the political standing of the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, would also understand that it would have an impact on bilateral ties between Canada and India. And therefore, it could have been handled in a different way. It should have been handled in a different way, as you have just been pointing out. I think a more politically astute, a more mature person would have handled it slightly differently. I don't see any reason why this should have come to this level of tu meme, as we say in Hindi.
Well, absolutely. So, but now that whatever has happened, right? India has gone ahead and expelled 6 Canadian diplomats. They don't have a high commissioner here. The previous high commissioner has gone back. Now, India has recalled 6 of its diplomats. Now, the Canadians in a statement later have claimed that they have actually expelled them. Where do you see this relationship going from now? Or is it a lost cause till the Trudeau government is in place?
I really don't know the answer to that question, Snehesh, because if you look at the trajectory of bilateral relations over the last year and a half, as you rightly said, it has only gone from bad to worse, and that is a reflection of the way the issue is being handled by the current government of Canada, the government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. As we have been saying, it can be handled in a different manner, a more astute manner, and a more mature manner. But obviously, I think in all his calculations, Prime Minister Trudeau is only looking at the domestic impact of what he says and does on this matter. He is not factoring and he is not taking into account the impact on the bilateral relationship, which, as we have seen and you rightly pointed out, has now hit a new low yesterday. But there are clear possibilities of it going even further down. So it all depends on how the Canadian government is wanting to handle this. And I'm sure that the Indian government will be able to respond in kind, just as they have done last night. That if you want it to be a tutu meme, we can respond in kind. But if you want to handle it more diplomatically, astutely, we can also be up to that game.
So, what happened yesterday was unprecedented in my mind. You've actually served in both the countries that I'm going to talk about is China and Pakistan. The last time where India has recalled its envoy, to anywhere in the world, I think from my memory, it comes to Pakistan and China. Pakistan, of course, it has happened frequently. Even now, we don't have a Indian High Commissioner there. Neither do the Pakistanis have here. But it was also with China, following the 1962 war. But in your memory, has this happened before? And how do you see India's move? Do you think that India is actually to blame for ratcheting it up a bit?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think, even I can recall that there are only 2 instances or 3 instances where Indian diplomats were recalled from another country. Pakistan is definitely one, or they may even have been, called a persona non grata and be asked to leave. But it's only China, which was once in the time of the 1962 conflict. With Pakistan, there have been more recent instances, not only very recently, but also I remember around 2001, we had recalled our then High Commissioner to Pakistan back when, the terrorist attack on India's parliament, and then our Indian forces, armed forces were put on high alert, etc., etc. But you can readily understand, and I'm sure your viewers and will also understand that India's relations with China and Pakistan are of a different nature compared to a country like Canada. So the fact that our relationship with Canada has come down to this low level, which we have sometimes seen vis-a-vis China and Pakistan, is something which is quite astonishing because it need not have come to this level.
So you mentioned about, our ties with Canada. We've enjoyed good ties with Canada. Canada is also part of the Western Bloc, right? And it's part of the Five Eyes also. So
right.
do you think this acrimony between the two countries, is it going to affect India's relations with the Western Bloc and also and especially with the Five Eyes?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, Snehesh. And, I have been pondering about it also for some time now. There is no doubt that Canada is a part of the Five Eyes, and there's no doubt that Canada shares intelligence and other information with each of the other 4 countries which are basically white Anglo-Saxon Protestant countries. But I think the crux of the matter here, and this is very important for you and your viewers to understand, is the very important difference of opinion that exists between the government of India on the one hand and the government of Canada on the other hand, of how to deal with this group of people, Canadian nationals, but who are targeting India, and not targeting India merely politically. They are targeting India with guns and in a terrorist manner. And all you have to do is think about the crash of the Air India airliner several decades ago to realize what kind of activity has been tolerated by the Canadians for so long from their own soil. Now, all the words that I use, Snehesh, will make you and your viewers think that I am talking about Pakistan. But here we are not talking about Pakistan, we're talking about Canada. And that's why this particular issue is very, very important for India, that we cannot tolerate terrorism from your soil being targeted at our country. And you've got to take some measures to stop that.
I think in a way, Canada has also understood how it is playing havoc with its own social and security needs, because they have now started putting restrictions on in terms of visas that have been issued, the total number of visas that have been issued, the student arrival and all. And this is something that India has always been talking about, that you have actually invited these elements into your country by having such a liberal and free visa policy for them. So, but you've been a diplomat, you've handled multiple desks, but most importantly, you've been the ambassador to Pakistan, which is where we face most of our tensions with. You've also been the envoy to China, which again we have tensions with. So, from your diplomatic experience, if both India and Canada really have to come back to the table, what do you think are the steps that both countries should take, and more importantly, that Canada should take? Because Canadians were the first ones to fire the shot.
Okay. Absolutely correct. I think, all these issues, whether it's with countries like China, Pakistan, and now even with Canada, and even with other countries, I think it is very important to handle those issues quietly, behind closed doors, be astute about it, be mature about it, and then try to get a meeting of minds so that the relationship is not impacted, just like it has been impacted over the past year and a half between India and Canada. So I think it's very important that there be some closed door, serious, reasonably high level negotiations, discussions between the two governments. But the problem with India and Canada, as is the problem today with India and China, is that the levels of trust at the highest levels of government between the two sides, or on the two sides, both governments, is very, very low. And therefore, I think you will have to start at a lower level and then build it up. And that is going to take time. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be a quick kind of solution for the problems that we have today between India and Canada.
So my last two questions to you. One, of course, is the fact that India issued a statement, called in the charge d'affaires, issued a statement saying that we are recalling our envoy there and other diplomats. It was only later, and this was happening on a Monday afternoon, evening time, which means Canadian early morning time. So, but the Canadians only, once they woke up, is around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Canadian time, is when they issued a statement saying that they're expelling the Indian diplomats. Do you think that India did the right thing by anticipating the Canadian move and pulling out first?
No, Snehesh, I would say that, even if the Canadians woke up the next day and then decided that they want to play it as an expelling of Indian diplomats, the fact is that at least 8 to 12 hours earlier, India had decided to pull out its diplomats, including the High Commissioner, and that we were in the process of doing so. But in those 8 to 12 hours, India had already expelled in return Canadian diplomats. Now, you must keep in mind that the principle of reciprocity is very, very important in diplomacy. And if we were going to pull out our High Commissioner, the senior most representative, or actually the representative of the government of India in Canada, then we would, pay back in the same coin. So I think that India has done the right thing in expelling the Canadian diplomats. The fact that the Canadians woke up the next morning and then also put out something to say that they were expelling, it doesn't change the facts on the ground, even though in nomenclature the things might seem a little more different and may seem more balanced in terms of tit for tat expelments.
So the Canadian foreign minister, while briefing the media very early morning today, she was asked a question and she responded by saying that all options, including diplomatic sanctions, are on table. So what do you think? What more could happen? Expulsions have happened, withdrawals have happened. What more do you think could happen, sir?
No, on the diplomatic side, there are many more steps which could be taken. As you know, Snehesh, and your viewers would also know, that both the Indian High Commission in Canada as well as the Canadian High Commission in India in New Delhi are a big organizations. So they have many, many people. So one of the measures which would be pretty extreme would be to entirely shut down the diplomatic representations in both countries. So you still have that long way to go and you have a long route to follow. It is actually quite silly to shut down diplomatic representations because that implies a sort of break in diplomatic ties. Even with China, for example, during the 1962 conflict, it was only the ambassadors who were withdrawn. The rest of the diplomatic mission continued to do their functions. And that is very important because it is an important channel of communication between the two countries. So at a time when it is absolutely critical for communication, quiet, closed door communication to take place between India and Canada, it would be quite silly to stop or to ask the diplomatic missions to close down. So I would think that would be a very, very extreme step. But I think it's very, very important to ensure that this quiet diplomatic communication between India and Canada continues and that there is a channel open for such communication.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to ThePrint. I hope better sense prevails and things are brought down to normalcy. But thank you once again, sir, for joining us here at ThePrint and explaining to me as well as the viewers what the situation is all about.
Thank you for having me, Snehesh.